emotional intelligence, and deep social awareness. Women across cultures share a surprisingly high level of emotional intelligence, a psychological trait that strongly shapes how they perceive the world and interact with others. Emotional intelligence is not just about being emotional. It is about understanding emotions, managing them effectively, and reading the emotional signals of others. From an early age, many women develop a heightened sensitivity to facial expressions, tone of voice, and body language. This allows them to notice emotional shifts that others often miss, making them exceptionally skilled in social environments. Psychologists suggest that women are more likely to process emotional information deeply. When something happens, whether positive or negative, women tend to analyze not only what happened, but how it felt, why it happened, and how it affected everyone involved. This depth of emotional processing helps women form strong interpersonal bonds and long-lasting relationships. It also explains why women often become emotional anchors in families, friendships, and workplaces. Another shared psychological trait is social awareness. Women are generally more attuned to group dynamics and unspoken rules within social settings. They can sense tension in a room, understand when someone feels excluded, and intuitively adjust their behavior to maintain harmony. This does not mean women avoid conflict. Rather, they are more likely to approach it with empathy and communication instead of aggression. This emotional awareness also explains why women often remember small details about people: birthdays, preferences, emotional reactions, and past conversations. These details are not trivial to them. They are psychological data that help women understand others more deeply. Over time, this creates trust, emotional safety, and a sense of being truly seen, something many people unconsciously crave. One of the most misunderstood psychological traits women share is overthinking. While it is often portrayed negatively, psychology reveals that overthinking is closely linked to advanced pattern recognition. Women tend to mentally replay conversations, decisions, and events not because they are weak, but because their brains are wired to detect meaning, consequences, and emotional patterns. This deep thinking allows women to anticipate outcomes before they happen. They often sense when a relationship is changing, when someone is hiding something, or when a situation may turn negative even without clear evidence. This ability is commonly referred to as intuition, but psychologically, it is the result of subconscious data processing. Women absorb emotional cues continuously, and their brains connect these signals faster than conscious reasoning. Intuition plays a powerful role in women's decision-making. While men may rely more on logic and visible facts, women often combine logic with emotional insight. This does not make their decisions irrational. In fact, studies suggest that emotionally informed decisions can be more accurate in complex social situations where human behavior is unpredictable. However, this same mental strength can also lead to emotional exhaustion. Because women think deeply and care intensely, they are more prone to mental fatigue, anxiety, and self-doubt. Many women replay mistakes repeatedly, holding themselves to high emotional and moral standards. This internal pressure often goes unseen by others, even though it silently shapes their confidence and mental health. Understanding this trait helps explain why women value reassurance, emotional clarity, and honest communication. When uncertainty exists, their minds naturally attempt to fill the gaps. Clear words and consistent actions can significantly reduce unnecessary emotional stress. Another surprising psychological trait women share is their natural inclination toward empathy and caregiving. Empathy is the ability to feel and understand what someone else is experiencing, and women generally score higher on empathy-related psychological measures. This makes them more responsive to emotional pain, distress, and vulnerability in others. Women often take on the role of emotional caretakers, not only in families but also in friendships and professional environments. They listen, support, comfort, and emotionally regulate situations without being asked. This phenomenon is known as emotional labor, and it involves managing both one's own emotions and the emotions of others to maintain emotional balance. Psychologically, women are more likely to feel responsible for emotional outcomes. If someone around them is unhappy, women may internalize that discomfort and feel compelled to fix it. While this makes them compassionate and supportive, It can also lead to emotional burnout when their efforts go unrecognized or unreciprocated. This caregiving instinct does not mean women are weak or dependent. On the contrary, it reflects emotional strength and resilience. Women are often capable of enduring emotional pain while continuing to support others, a trait that has helped societies survive through generations. However, this strength can sometimes become a burden when women neglect their own emotional needs. Learning to set boundaries is psychologically important for women. When empathy is balanced with self-care, it becomes a source of power rather than exhaustion. Healthy emotional expression allows women to remain compassionate without sacrificing their mental well-being. A deeply shared psychological trait among women is their ongoing journey of identity and self-worth. Women tend to question who they are, how they are perceived, and whether they are enough more frequently than men. This self-reflection is not insecurity alone. It is a sign of psychological depth and emotional growth. Women often define themselves through relationships, achievements, and emotional connections. While this can create meaning and purpose, it can also make self-worth feel conditional, dependent on approval, success, or validation. Social expectations intensify the struggle, pushing women to balance strength and softness, ambition and care, independence and connection. Psychologically, many women experience strong internal dialogues. They are constantly negotiating between societal expectations and personal desires. This inner conversation shapes their confidence, choices, and emotional resilience. Over time, this struggle often leads to powerful self-awareness and emotional maturity. As women grow older, many develop a stronger sense of self. They begin to prioritize emotional peace, authenticity, and mental health over external validation. This transformation is a key psychological shift, moving from seeking approval to choosing self-respect. In the end, the most surprising psychological trait women share is emotional evolution. Women continuously adapt, learn, heal, and grow through emotional experiences. Their psychology is not static. It is dynamic, reflective, and deeply human. Understanding these traits allows us to appreciate not only how women think and feel, but also the emotional strength that quietly shapes the world around them. One of the most powerful and surprising psychological traits women share is the way they experience love and emotional attachment. For women, love is not just a feeling in the present moment. It is deeply connected to memory, meaning, and emotional history. Psychological research shows that women tend to form attachments that are emotionally layered. They remember not only what someone did for them, but how that person made them feel during vulnerable moments. Women store emotional experiences with great detail. A kind gesture, a hurtful word, or a moment of emotional neglect can remain vivid in their minds for years. This is why women may appear to hold onto the past. In reality, their brains are designed to protect emotional continuity. Emotional memory helps women evaluate trust, safety, and emotional reliability in relationships. This also explains why women often struggle to disconnect emotionally even after a relationship ends. While they may move on physically or socially, the emotional bond dissolves more slowly. Women do not detach easily from people they once felt safe with. This is not weakness, it is a sign of deep emotional investment. When women love, they love with their whole psychological presence. Attachment psychology suggests that women are more likely to seek emotional security and consistency. They value reassurance, emotional availability, and meaningful communication. When these needs are unmet, women may feel emotionally anxious, misunderstood, or unappreciated, even if the relationship looks stable on the surface. Interestingly, once a woman emotionally disconnects, it is often final. When emotional trust is repeatedly broken, women slowly withdraw internally before doing so externally. By the time they stop expressing emotions, the psychological bond has already faded. Silence, in many cases, is not indifference, it is emotional closure. Another surprising psychological trait women share is the unique way they experience stress and anxiety. Women are more likely than men to feel stress emotionally before it becomes physical. This means they often sense pressure internally, through worry, emotional tension, or mental overload, long before any outward signs appear. Psychologically, This makes women more aware of their emotional state, but it also makes them more vulnerable to prolonged stress. Women tend to carry multiple emotional responsibilities at once. They think about the well-being of family members, relationships, careers, and future outcomes simultaneously. This constant mental juggling creates what psychologists call cognitive and emotional overload. Even when women appear calm on the outside, their minds may be working relentlessly in the background. Anxiety in women is often misunderstood. It is not simply fear or insecurity. It is frequently a result of high emotional responsibility. Women worry because they care deeply. Their anxiety often reflects anticipation, trying to prevent emotional harm before it happens. This protective mindset is rooted in emotional intelligence, not weakness. Despite this, women show remarkable emotional endurance. They continue functioning, supporting others, and fulfilling responsibilities even while emotionally exhausted. Many women normalize their stress, believing it is something they must simply manage silently. This hidden strength allows them to survive difficult circumstances, but it can also lead to burnout if emotional needs are ignored. Psychologically healthy women eventually learn that strength does not mean silence. Expressing stress, asking for support, and setting boundaries are signs of emotional maturity, not failure. When women acknowledge their limits, their emotional resilience becomes sustainable rather than draining. One of the most misunderstood psychological traits women share is the balance between independence and emotional connection. Modern women are increasingly self-reliant, ambitious, and capable of building careers, identities, and lives on their own terms. However, independence does not cancel out the desire for emotional closeness. Psychologically, women often seek both strength and connection at the same time. Women are fully capable of handling responsibilities alone, solving problems independently, and making difficult decisions without external help. Yet emotionally, they still value partnership, communication, and shared vulnerability. This duality sometimes confuses people. A woman can be strong and still want reassurance. She can be independent and still crave emotional intimacy. These are not contradictions. They are complementary aspects of psychological wholeness. Women tend to define independence not as isolation, but as choice. The ability to stay, to leave, to commit, or to walk away freely is what creates psychological security. When a woman feels she is choosing a relationship rather than depending on it for survival, her attachment becomes healthier and more authentic. Another shared psychological pattern is that women often test emotional safety indirectly. They observe consistency. They notice effort. They measure alignment between words and actions. This is not manipulation, it is subconscious evaluation. Women look for emotional reliability before fully opening up. Trust, for them, is built slowly through repeated proof, not grand gestures. At the same time, women may struggle internally between wanting to appear strong and wanting to express vulnerability. Society often praises women for resilience but judges emotional sensitivity. As a result, many women suppress their need for reassurance to avoid seeming too emotional. This internal conflict can create emotional distance even when closeness is desired. The surprising truth is that women feel most secure when they do not have to choose between strength and softness. When they can be ambitious and affectionate, independent and emotionally supported, logical and intuitive, all at once, their psychological well-being flourishes. Ultimately, women do not seek dependence. They seek mutual emotional partnership. They want connection that respects their independence rather than threatens it. When this balance is achieved, women show extraordinary loyalty, emotional stability, and long-term commitment. Perhaps the most inspiring psychological trait women share is their extraordinary capacity for healing and emotional transformation. Women experience emotional pain deeply, whether from relationships, betrayal, rejection, failure, or loss, but they also possess a remarkable ability to grow through that pain. Psychologically, women are more likely to reflect on emotional experiences, analyze lessons, and reconstruct their sense of self after hardship. When a woman is hurt, she does not simply forget and move forward. She processes, she questions, she feels, she tries to understand what happened and what it meant. This reflective process may take time, and during that time she may appear withdrawn, quiet, or emotionally distant. But internally, transformation is happening. She is reorganizing her emotional world. Women often rebuild themselves in silence. After heartbreak, many focus on self-improvement, emotional boundaries, and rediscovering their identity. Pain becomes information. Disappointment becomes wisdom. Over time, this internal growth strengthens their intuition and emotional standards. The next time they love, trust, or commit, they do so with greater awareness. When we step back and look at all these psychological traits together, emotional intelligence, deep thinking, empathy, attachment, resilience, independence, and transformation, we begin to see something powerful. Women are not complicated. They are layered. And there is a difference. Much of the misunderstanding surrounding women comes from observing behavior without understanding the psychology beneath it. When a woman overthinks, it is often because she cares deeply. When she asks questions, it is usually because she seeks clarity and emotional security. When she withdraws, it is rarely random. It is often the result of accumulated emotional data that her mind has been processing quietly. Women feel intensely, but they also analyze intensely. They nurture others, yet constantly negotiate their own identity. They carry emotional weight silently while appearing composed externally. They crave connection but refuse to sacrifice self-respect. They can endure emotional storms and still rebuild themselves stronger than before. Perhaps the most surprising truth is this: women are constantly evolving. Every heartbreak teaches them boundaries. Every challenge strengthens their resilience. Every emotional experience refines their intuition. Growth is not accidental, it is psychological adaptation. Understanding these shared traits is not about placing women into a box. It is about recognizing patterns that help us communicate better, love better, and respect better. When emotional depth is understood rather than judged, relationships become healthier. When empathy is reciprocated, emotional labor becomes balanced. When independence is respected, connection becomes stronger. At the core, women desire what every human being desires: respect, emotional safety, appreciation, and authenticity. The difference is that women often perceive emotional shifts earlier and process them more deeply. So instead of asking, "Why are women like this?" perhaps the better question is, what is her psychology trying to protect, express, or understand? When we begin to see women not as emotional mysteries but as emotionally intelligent individuals navigating a complex world, everything changes. And maybe the most surprising psychological trait women share is this: they may bend, but they rarely break. They may feel deeply, but they grow even deeper. And once they truly understand their worth, they become unstoppable. One of the least discussed psychological realities women share is that they often feel misunderstood rather than unheard. Many women are capable of expressing themselves clearly, yet they feel that their emotions are minimized, simplified, or dismissed. Psychologically, this creates a quiet frustration, not because they are ignored, but because their emotional depth is not taken seriously. Women often wish others understood that their emotions are responses, not overreactions. When a woman reacts strongly, it is rarely about a single moment. It is usually the result of accumulated experiences, repeated patterns, and emotional history. What looks sudden from the outside has often been building internally for a long time. Another shared experience is that women do not seek perfection in others. They seek emotional effort. Consistency matters more than intensity. Honesty matters more than charm. Presence matters more than promises. Psychologically, women feel safest when actions align with words. When this alignment is missing, trust slowly erodes, even if affection still exists. Women also wish people understood how much emotional energy they invest silently. They think ahead, anticipate needs, remember details, and emotionally prepare for outcomes that others may never consider. When this effort goes unnoticed, women may feel emotionally invisible, even in relationships where they are physically present. Importantly, women do not want to be fixed. When they share emotions, they are often seeking understanding rather than solutions. Emotional validation calms the nervous system. Feeling understood reduces anxiety. Being emotionally met creates connection. This is not dependence, it is psychological regulation through empathy. As women mature emotionally, many stop explaining themselves excessively. They learn that those who genuinely care will seek to understand without being forced. Silence then becomes a form of self-respect, not emotional withdrawal. In the end, women do not ask for special treatment. They ask for emotional awareness, mutual respect, and sincerity. When these needs are met, women offer loyalty, depth, and emotional stability that can transform relationships, families, and communities. Understanding women's psychology is not about agreeing with every emotion. It is about acknowledging that emotions carry meaning. And when that meaning is respected, connection becomes effortless. One of the most mature psychological traits women develop over time is the ability to create emotional boundaries. This does not happen naturally at a young age. It is learned through experience, disappointment, and self-discovery. Many women begin life giving too much time, energy, understanding, and emotional access, believing that love means constant availability. Psychology shows that this phase is often necessary before true self-respect is formed. As women grow emotionally, they begin to recognize the difference between being kind and being self-sacrificing. They learn that not everyone deserves unlimited access to their emotions. This realization marks a powerful psychological shift. Women stop proving their worth and start protecting it. Boundaries become a form of emotional self-care, not emotional distance. Another shared trait is silent strength. When women stop reacting impulsively and start responding selectively, it is not emotional coldness, it is emotional wisdom. They conserve energy. They choose peace over drama. They disengage from situations that repeatedly drain them. This quiet withdrawal is often misunderstood, but psychologically, it is a sign of growth. Women who develop strong emotional boundaries become clearer in their communication. They no longer beg for understanding or chase validation. Instead, they express needs calmly and observe how others respond. Effort becomes the measure of sincerity. Consistency becomes the measure of trust. Interestingly, women often become most powerful when they stop explaining themselves. Over-explaining is usually rooted in fear of being misunderstood. When that fear fades, confidence takes its place. Women realize that those who value them will listen without persuasion. This stage of psychological maturity brings emotional stability. Women feel less reactive, more grounded, and more aligned with their inner values. They still feel deeply, but their emotions no longer control their self-worth. Strength and softness finally exist in balance. In the end, emotional boundaries do not make women distant. They make women free. Free from emotional exhaustion, free from unnecessary guilt, and free to invest their energy where it truly matters. And perhaps this is one of the most surprising psychological traits women share. When they choose themselves, they do not lose their kindness, they refine it.